Hi, you just actually caught me looking at my checklist for today's off the page vlog today. You might guess that I'm going to be talking about checklists today, and you would be right, that is my topic. I'm going to be talking about a book that I haven't looked at yet in this series. It's called You're Going to Love This Kid, and it's the first book I ever wrote. It was a textbook that features ideas for supporting kids on the autism spectrum in inclusive classrooms. So this idea is on page 262 and 263, and I discuss in that section how to use visuals inside classrooms, but we're going to talk specifically about checklists today. And I want to feature a couple of reasons, the rationale for using checklists, and then I want to talk about 5 different kinds of checklists as well. So to get started, let's go right into the rationale. I'm going to check my checklist to make sure I hit them all. I'm going to talk about 3 reasons to use checklists. And the first is, may seem a little bit obvious, but we know that checklists are really right in the wheelhouse, if you will, for a lot of people on the autism spectrum. You know, Temple Grandin's a very famous person on the spectrum, and she wrote a whole book called Thinking in Pictures, which is about that visual strength that she has. So we know a lot of people have that visual strength, and we want to capitalize on that. We know that visuals can really boost comprehension for a lot of students on the autism spectrum, and actually a lot of students with disabilities in general. Second reason to use checklists is that they can be very calming and comforting. So they meet the emotional needs of a lot of individuals that I know, folks that feel overwhelmed with the unknown, especially when there's a lot of novelty. Hey, beginning of the school year, that's a lot of people are experiencing that right now. So that you put it all, literally just get it all in black and white, so that that's one less variable I have to worry about. The third reason to use checklists is because, hey, they help us teach a lot of skills. So if you're a greedy teacher like I am, you can use a checklist to teach literacy skills, starting with pictures, then phrases, then sentences. You can use a visual to teach, a checklist to teach organization, independence. So there's a whole lot that you can get out of this simple little tool. All right, let's go back to the checklist and start talking about the 5 kinds of checklists, at least the 5 that I'm going to feature. All right, according to my checklist, we're going to start by talking about routines. So think about using a checklist for any kind of routine that you have in the classroom that can be hard to master. What to do when you come into the classroom, what to do when you leave the classroom, how to rotate through different kinds of stations or centers. You can also create a checklist for any kind of classroom activity, something that might be challenging for a student. So think about using a checklist for writing a research paper or putting together a big art portfolio, that has lots of moving parts. You can also use a checklist for any kind of task that has multiple steps, maybe checking out a book from the classroom library. Another use of a checklist would be to focus on a classroom job, or even a school-wide job. So you could use a checklist for, learning the steps to stocking the school store or taking care of a classroom pet. Finally, you could use a checklist for something like solving a problem or learning some kind of a new skill. You are not unsure of how to approach a teacher. You don't know how to tackle a thorny issue with a friend. And those don't seem like the most common uses of checklists, but for a lot of students, they can work really well. And hey, maybe they can even work for the faculty lounge, who knows? So that's just a sampling of what you might want to use in your school or classroom. I want to just say one last thing about checklists before I finish up, and that is you don't need a lot to get started. Just consider what kind of format you want to use. Do you want to use an app? Do you want to use a device? Do you want to use paper? Do you want to create a laminated keychain for the checklist? Do you want to have the student create the checklist as a way to teach that skill, or do you need to create it? Do you want to create a checklist for just one student or a few students, or maybe all of your students might benefit from that checklist? So those are just a few considerations before you get going. And if you feel really overwhelmed by all that I just threw at you, you might want to create a checklist. Maybe you could make a checklist for how to start your first checklist. Just an idea. Hopefully that was helpful to you and that you have at least one idea for creating a checklist for you, your students, your family, etc. And hopefully that you'll want to come back for more ideas. So if you liked this one and you want more, you can join me on my website, www.paulakluth.com, or you can come over to YouTube and find other videos just like this one. You can even subscribe to me on my YouTube channel. Happy checklist making, and I'll see you next time on Off the Page.